We're back at the Masterclass, extracting as many lessons and wisdom as we can from the brother ISHOWSPEED and just the legendary run that he's having. For people who may not be aware, ISHOWSPEED is a famous streamer. At 20 years old, has garnered millions of followers with a global impact. African American young man from Ohio, the Midwest. Salute to my Midwesterners. I'm from Michigan. I want to say his father is from Detroit. I'm also from Detroit. So definitely can understand just the Midwest psychology and, growing up in small communities and small towns and the impact of, being a global recognized, figure, how that can, what that can mean from coming from a small town. So really proud of the brother. But there's always lessons and things that we can learn from our life experiences. So this is just extracting some wisdom around, reality and that we're still African Americans in a, dominant society that systemically, essentially it's not really in our favor. All right. I did a lot of research on that on my African American empowerment series, just even with the statistics and the data and also the race history and the different racial hierarchies that exist today and how this young man's journey and experience really highlights and taps into some of the historical narratives that are still present till this day. All right, even globally. All right, just the perception of the black man in places like China, Tokyo, right, Europe, how it's very much a systemic global, phenomenon around how black people are viewed even internationally. It's not just limited to the United States of America. So it's so important based off of these facts, for a lot of the African American youth to educate themselves, you know, and also to remain confident and encourage, that you can be great, despite your current conditions and your current circumstances. Growing up in the Midwest, there's not really a whole lot going on, it's starting to develop a little bit more, but, hey, what's up? How you guys doing? Thank you for joining the stream. Even if you don't stay, I appreciate you guys joining. Small channel, man, just kind of building this up. I like that name. Just give me my money. That's dope. What's up, McCoy Staley? How you guys doing? Really enjoyed the ISHOWSPEED tour of America. I thought it was amazing. I even learned a lot about the country that I didn't even know. Hey, what's up, Uke? I don't want to butcher it. Yeah, food. I know, right, guys? Yeah, the ISHOWSPEED tour was awesome, man. I learned a lot about America that I didn't really know. A lot of nature, a lot of beauty, places that I've never even been to. So, even my eyes were opened a lot. YouTube is an awesome platform where you can really get a lot of, attention and awareness around things that you don't really know personally. But really want to break down how when Black people tend to get a lot of popularity, they tend to get a lot of fame or notoriety, how it can, mislead a lot of the younger Americans and younger Black people that, racism is gone, everything is cured, there's no problems, right? You got a famous Black guy, he has all this money, he has all this popularity and notoriety. What you niggas complaining about? Everything is all good. You accept it, and it can really minimize and diminish some of the realities that, minorities, particularly African Americans, are still faced with. So this isn't playing a victim or crying out or anything like that. This is just to sort of update a lot of people on false, distorted narratives based off of popularity and fame that can be created. A lot of it is bullshit, right? So I'm gonna go back through my introduction again, just to kind of bring you guys up to speed to ISHOWSPEED, right? So racism at its core is the systemic prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against individuals based on their race, most often targeting African Americans in the United States. I appreciate you, Bentley. Historically, it has shaped laws, economics, education, and opportunity, reducing human beings into stereotypes rather than acknowledging their full humanity. In today's digital age, figures like ISHOWSPEED rise to global attention, attracting millions with charisma, humor, and authenticity. Yet beneath the applause, a harder question remains. Has racism truly diminished, or does visibility merely disguise the deeper wounds of inequality? So a lot of the people that are empowered, these white elitists, these Indian elitists, these Spanish elitists, these black elitists, they love to see people like ISHOWSPEED rise to fame, particularly groups, individuals or persons from groups who historically have been, sort of like targeted and have really strong narratives and stereotypes around just their pure existence, right? You don't really have to be doing a lot for people to kind of see, like, hey, you're a black person. So when they see figures or, figureheads who arise, right, from the ashes, right, from some of these marginalized, sort of very controversial groups, they love to see them embraced. They love to see them welcomed. Hey, you guys can say that we're racist, right? Dick Sporting Goods, we got a black person on the team. So you guys can say we only work with white people, right? We got a dick on the team. They love to see corporate powers and structures that are predominantly white, right? They love to see when there's a black person that rises from, a lot of the controversy, because it makes them get this sense of sort of like, they feel like justified, like, see, yes, these people can't say that we're racist. We got this nigga on the team, So really be careful with the enemy's tactics and how he's worked and how he works. So you see how a lot of these different brands and companies, they kind of latched who weren't really historically known for like black representation, right? Why do you think everyone is so tired of black people? Whenever you have a victim and not even just a victim, but whenever you have a crime or an injustice that happens against anybody, right? If an injustice happened against a Jewish person, the injustice that happened against Charlie Kirk, right? How he was just murdered, right? In broad daylight, all right? Very just horrific, traumatic experience, all right? But if that person who killed him did not get caught, right? Can you imagine Charlie Kirk's murderer not being caught till this day? You motherfuckers will never hear the end of it. All right. The murderer was caught, and you can't go anywhere or look anywhere without seeing something about Charlie Kirk, right? Imagine in the white community if the murderer had not been caught. You would never hear the end of that shit. All right. It would just be an ongoing. It currently is, and he's been caught. So imagine if he hasn't been caught, it would just keep spinning these narratives. So think about it with the black people, right? A lot of the injustice, a lot of the murders, the atrocities that happened to ancestors back in history, a lot of those people haven't been caught. A lot of those damages and loss of millions, right? Generational wealth has not been really reprimanded. So it's the same thing. These narratives and these things keep spinning. Whenever there's an injustice or a crime against a person or a people, and there's really hasn't been any real resolution, it's just going to keep, history that hasn't been really learned, it just kind of repeats itself. So I think that's the situation with black people, where there were a lot of atrocities, there were a lot of traumas, there were a lot of just inhumane practices, right? Who the fuck ties up a person to horses, one leg tied to one horse, another leg tied to one horse? Let's rip you. Some of this shit, if you look back at history to some of the things that these people were doing to black people, you don't even see that shit in movies, right? Imagine, a white boy getting tied to a damn horse, one leg strapped to one horse, one leg strapped to another horse, and they just rip the motherfucker apart, right? And then there's no justice, right? No fucking accountability. It's just we just kill niggas and kill people. And just go and eat breakfast, go back to your fucking pancakes. It just stays with you, right? So I think that's why, there was an injustice, there was a violation, there was atrocities, there was a lot of loss, there was a lot of damage, there was a lot of just destructive actions towards a particular group where there really hasn't been any resolution. It was like, yeah, this shit happened to you guys. Get up and put on your fucking work boots, go back to work, forget about the shit, right? And I think that's just not how life works. So I believe that is the reason why. And some people, they get tired of the black discussion and the black conversation because they have a life of privilege where they don't really have to deal with a lot of that shit, right? They go to work, they go out into the world, they're embraced, they're respected, they're loved, they have a wealth of opportunities, so for them, human beings don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. So if I have opportunities, if I can go out and I ain't got to worry about people looking at me fucking crazy and life is going great for me, in their mind, they're like, what the fuck is that with the other person? Why life is great for me, so it should be as great for them too. Why are they, they don't tend to see that how individualized, life is in America. They think if shit is going well for them, if shit is going well for everybody. We're very narcissistic as a human creation, right? So people who tend to come from really just, rewarding, sort of like opportunistic, situations where they're winning shit, they don't get why a lot of black people have this gripe against them, or this sort of like difficulty, sort of coming out of this history, because they're like, shit, I'm winning. You guys, look at all the opportunities I have. You guys have all these opportunities. Look at ISHOWSPEED. He's making all this fucking money. He's getting all these people love him. What are you black people bitching about? Right. So they're not able to see outside of the smoking mirrors into what people are really going through individually. And they get exhausted. They get burnt out because it's hard for them to embrace diversity. So they just don't want to hear about the shit, honestly. And they feel like there's nothing they can do about it, so I can see that perspective. So racism has historically shaped laws, economics, education, and opportunity, reducing human beings into stereotypes rather than acknowledging their full humanity. In today's digital age, figures like ISHOWSPEED rise to global attention. So most white people have black fatigue around everyday niggas, right? They don't got black fatigue around ISHOWSPEED. That motherfucker pull off out the tour bus, they're running out there faster than fucking Wi-Fi, right? So who does black fatigue really apply to, right? It just apply to the everyday niggas? Does it apply to ISHOWSPEED? Because as you guys seen, everywhere he went, shit was damn near more white people and Hispanics out there than niggas. Really? So where is black fatigue? Right? There is no fucking black fatigue. It's just a lot of you people from this dominant society. If these motherfucking niggas ain't serving you and you can't win off of their popularity, or you don't get no social credit off the everyday nigga, you're fatigued. That's what black fatigue is. I can't get no credibility off your black ass. You just the everyday nigga. I can't take a picture of you, put that shit on Instagram, and people are like, damn, look, I'm with Jeffrey. It's only black fatigue when they can't benefit from your ass. All right. So this is a dominant society in America. They're very strategic on who they apply certain, concepts to. All right. If it doesn't benefit them. All right. Don't forget that. So here in a digital age, figures like ISHOWSPEED rise to global attention, attracting millions with charisma, humor, and authenticity. Yet beneath the applause, harder questions remain. So I'm going to go ahead and go into: has racism really truly diminished, or does visibility merely disguise the deeper wounds of inequality? So I have some points here. The illusion of progress. Throughout history, black excellence has been celebrated while black suffering was ignored. For example, when ISHOWSPEED packed stadiums in Portugal or Japan, fans chant his name like he's a cultural bridge. Yet back home, young black men in Ohio are still disproportionately stopped by police, showing how one person's fame can create the illusion of progress without changing the systemic reality. Right? Tokenism is the inclusion of a few minority individuals in positions of visibility to suggest fairness. A modern example is when corporations feature one black influencer in their ad campaigns during Black History Month, but their boardrooms remain overwhelmingly white. Similarly, Speed's global embrace risks being used as proof of diversity, while everyday inequities for black Americans remain unchanged. Right? When Jackie Robinson was integrated into the Major League Baseball in 1947, America celebrated his talent, right? We had Jackie Robinson, right? Yet at the same time, Jim Crow segregation forced back black families into second-class housing and schools. Today, Speed breaks barriers online by connecting to fans across cultures. But meanwhile, young African-American streamers without his visibility face harassment, racist trolling, and a lack of sponsorship opportunities. Right? Barack Obama. The election of Obama in 2008 symbolized progress, right? We got a black president. You niggas got a black president. Shut the fuck up about that racism, right? You guys got a nigga in office. What the fuck else do you want, But simultaneously, hate groups surged online and voter suppression laws quietly spread. In Speed's case, his worldwide love might make people argue racism is over. But just as Obama's presidency coexisted with Trayvon Martin's death and Ferguson protests, Speed's fame coexists with ongoing police brutality, racial profiling, and underfunded black schools. Economic tokenism. In corporate America, black executives are often showcased as proof of diversity. For instance, Fortune 500 companies may highlight a single black VP, while their leadership pipeline is over 90% white. Similarly, YouTube might highlight Speed as one of its most diverse creators, while smaller black creators still struggle with demonetization and algorithmic bias, right? They had the whole damn YouTube family come out for this nigga when he got to San Francisco. Y'all see that shit? They even had Mr. YouTube come out, but you still got black channels, smaller black channels who are fucking struggling to just put out raw, authentic content without losing their fucking channel, right? Just every little thing they do, they can just be stripped away, right? So I was even thinking if you play music from other, artists and you don't have the claims or copyrights to that music, that can affect your channel, And Speed was like blasting all kind of artists and shit. I was thinking like, damn, I should have kept that fucking Hawaii video up, man. My daughter out there dancing to fucking hip hop music. But so it's just it just this selection of, the election of selection, the selection of election. That just depends on, that tokenism, what you can get away with. From Louis Armstrong to Beyonce, black entertainers have drawn massive audiences, yet record labels historically underpaid or exploited them. Today, Speed garners millions of views, but think about how platforms profit more from his content than he does. Black culture creates global trends, yet the economic reward often doesn't reach the broader black community, right? He's making YouTube all kind of fucking money, right? The Harlem Renaissance in the 1920s, Harlem's jazz and poetry captivated the nation. White elites traveled to Harlem clubs while simultaneously supporting policies that excluded black families from loans and housing. Right? Today, young fans across the world love Speed's humor and energy, yet systemic racism continues to harm black families through mass incarceration and widening wealth gaps. Tokenism in relationships, for many, being chosen as the exception becomes a form of tokenism. A black student at a predominantly white college might be praised as different, while stereotypes about other black students still persist. Similarly, Speed is often praised internationally as one of the good ones, yet this doesn't erase the prejudice still directed towards ordinary black travelers, workers, or students abroad. You didn't really hear a lot about that nigga being like a passport brother, right? He's in all these different countries getting all these damn women. You don't hear a lot of people hating on him like, yeah, this motherfucker's a passport bro, man. He's out there, you don't see the women in different countries like harassing him and, any sort of like, I'm not saying he doesn't experience that, but just showing you the power of this tokenism, how the everyday black man traveling internationally, he's a piece of shit if he talked to one woman, and it depends on how he goes about it. Every situation is independent and individual, but you're looked at as like, you're these damn black men, they're monsters. They're going across the world and talking to these different women. Really, a lot of these guys just want to break out the fucking racist American system. A lot of these women just, want your fucking money, right? So it depends on who they are, but that's just what it is. You get the fucking research, all right? But it's okay for him to go out and do it, right? Because he's ISHOWSPEED, right? It's fun and games. So there's different sort of like double standards, right? The burden of representation. Figures like ISHOWSPEED carry the double weight of personal success and representing his race. When Speed makes a mistake live on stream, like shouting impulsively or reacting emotionally, it's judged more harshly because it reflects on stereotypes about black men being too loud or being too angry, right? So he has pressures and things that he's up against as well. I'm pretty sure, but he's young, his youth in a way gives him grace, right? Because who isn't loud and fucking sarcastic at 20, 19, 21, right? So I think that kind of helps him. That motherfucker would have been like 40 acting like that. It'd have been a totally different narrative. But, when you're young, you kind of get away. So, life has given him that grace. Fans who admire black celebrities are often benefit socially. Okay, don't think about the benefits of these fans. All right, they like to make you think that, you got fans. Be so grateful, be so thankful. You have fans. They love you. They're here for you. They die. A lot of times it's about the fan. If I can get a picture with this nigga, if I can get something signed, man, my little bank status, social credit just went up. I went from a social credit score of like 500. I can barely afford a friend. Now I'm at like 700 because I was walking with ISHOWSPEED through the amusement park. You go back to school, man. You was walking with them through the fucking amusement park, man. Come over here and eat with us. But before it was like, motherfucker, don't eat with us. So there's some benefits that come with proximity to, people who have really high social status. All right. So it says, for example, when someone takes a selfie with Speed at an event, they gain credibility in their social group. The fan gets clout as much as Speed gets love. This shows how tokenism works two ways. The admired figure is lifted, but the admirer also reaps status without addressing the deeper racial inequalities. Racism as conditional. Black acceptance in global spaces often comes with conditions, right? Performance, humor, or entertainment. Speed is adored when he dances, he jokes, right? Or games. But if he spoke directly about systemic racism or police brutality, would those same fans stay, right? So acceptance is conditional. As long as you keep your fucking mouth shut, you're not talking about all these racial issues, political issues. You're not on there talking about Jesus. We'll pay you all kind of money, right? That's how the enemy works. Like, we don't want to hear about all that shit. Just feed us that entertainment, feed us some of that, pleasure. We don't want to hear all that socio-political stuff. Even Speed has faced racist comments during live streams. Clip shows trolls using slurs or mocking his skin tone. His global reach hasn't erased the prejudice he still faces. It's only changed where it appears, right? Similarly, LeBron James had the N word spray painted on his Los Angeles home despite his worldwide fame, right? Proving that status doesn't protect from racism, right? Athletes like LeBron James or Serena Williams are adored for talent, but criticized when speaking about justice. LeBron was told to shut up and dribble when he spoke out about racism. If Speed uses his platform to raise awareness around racial issues, he risks losing fans who only accept him as an entertainer, not a truth teller. All right. While tokens are celebrated, millions of African Americans face disparities. For instance, the median wealth of white families in America is nearly 8 times higher than that of black families. A fan might cheer for Speed online, but still avoid moving into a majority black neighborhood. All right. Tokenism allows admiration for the individual while ignoring structural disadvantages faced by the community. True progress requires dismantling barriers, not showcasing tokens. Speed's global embrace should inspire young African Americans, but they must also recognize that admiration built on fame is fragile, right? The lesson is this: equality isn't when one of us is celebrated, but when all of us are safe, respected, and given opportunity without conditions. Until then, tokenism is no cure for racism. It is only a disguise. I thought this was really important to talk about because a lot of young people, you guys just kind of eat up a lot of the bullshit. Let's be real, all right? And you really could care less for history, depending on your personality, your astrological chart, your birth chart, all this other shit. But it's really important that you guys really know what the reality is and what's really going on. All right, all of this stuff is not happenstance, But nevertheless, I am proud of the young brother. I am proud of just a young man winning, especially a young black man, especially in the Midwest where a lot of us don't really make it out, truth be told. So, especially how he came out, on YouTube, a platform that everybody uses. I just think it's a beautiful story, but there are a lot of beautiful lessons that we can gain from this. Praying for a lot of you younger black people that God protects you, keeps you safe, all right? Keeps your mind open to wisdom and to learning and to really looking at your history. All right. I'm still working. I had a little bit of a break. So I wanted to kind of come in. Just came back from Hawaii, back in California, back with the family. Um, you guys can be great too. All right. Everybody isn't an ISHOWSPEED. Everybody isn't a, Kai Sanat, but that's the beauty of life, right? You are you. You're one of one. All right. So what you have in you, what you're equipped with, what God has programmed into you, we don't have. All right. So that's something to be grateful for and thankful for in and of itself. Don't diminish your power. Don't diminish your light. Don't look down on yourself because you don't have 100,000 people in your chat or you don't have $200,000 people chasing you down. That isn't the measure of your success and your value and your worth. You measure your success and your value and your worth by just you being here, just you existing. That's enough. Nobody can do what you do. All right. So, you're beautiful, you're loved, you're valued. Pray for the brother ISHOWSPEED. He's not any exception to the racism and the prejudice that goes on in this world. Just because he's popular and famous doesn't mean he has his struggles. But I just wanted to speak to it, even so he can have a place where he can be validated and he can be heard. But yeah, I got to get back to work, have a few more clients. I'm just going to be working my ass off as usual. You're a full-time parent, it just doesn't stop. But you guys pray for me. I'll continue pumping out more videos, and that's all I have for today, man. I love you guys. Here for you guys. You're great. All right. You're loved. You're valued. Keep posting. Keep showing up, showing out. All right. We need you in this world. All right. We all kind of fit together like a beautiful puzzle, like a beautiful tapestry. All right. So don't dismiss or diminish your part and your role in this thing we call life. You guys have a blessed one.